Okay, in this lecture I want to show you how to use these design tools up here, which basically just allow you to add different elements into your form. And we're not going to look at all of them, but we're going to look at about half of the ones that are available up here. Okay? But first what I want to do, I don't want to mess this form up, so I'm going to create a copy of this form and we'll do our practicing on that and then we'll just delete it. And then later I'll show you how to add a few things to this form and we'll do some other modifications to it. But to make a copy of a form, and you can do this with tables or queries or reports or any of the other objects, is you hover over this and you right click on it and you just click copy, and then you right click on the open navigation pane here and you click paste. And then it'll ask you to name it. And see, it says copy of form employees. That's perfect. That way we know it's a copy and we're just going to go delete it when we're finished. Okay, so there's our copy. So we'll close out of our original so we don't mess it up, and then we'll double click on this guy. Or we can actually close this, and another way to open it is to go right click here, and then we can actually go straight into design view just by clicking that. Okay, so here we are in our design view. And what I want to show you in this video is how to use these different design tools up here. And you have the whole row of them here, and then we can either scroll down to new ones or we can just expand the whole list and you can see all of them here. So you can see that when I hover over something, it highlights it with a gray outline. And you'll notice also that by default this tool here is already highlighted, and that's your select tool. That's the tool that we use to select items, fields, and boxes in our form. Okay, so I'm going to left click off of that to unselect those. So let's start with our first tool here, and it's a text box. And you'll notice that we already have text boxes in our form, and that's these right here. And if I click on this and I go to the property sheet, you'll see right up here it says selection type text box. And a text box is where a user is able to enter information or view information that connects to one of your tables, or it can also connect to a query, which we'll create later. But if we click off of that and we grab this, so we're going to left click on the text box and we're going to bring it down. Let's just put it at the bottom here. And actually let's drag this over here so it lines up with the rest of our labels. So say we didn't have this employment status in here when we used the design wizard, then we could go in and just click into here, type in employment status, then we can select on the text box and we would go to data and we would assign a control source here. So in this case we would select employment status, and by doing that we've basically recreated this label and text box here. Okay, so let's delete that for now because obviously we already have that. The next one, which is a really useful tool here, is a button. So again, I left click on this to highlight it, and then I come down here and I just click and drag, left click and drag, and that creates a button. So you see it's already named at command 20. We can rename that later if we want. But this button wizard gives you all kinds of choices for how to create your button and what it will actually do. So you can see we have record navigation, and this gives you options to like find the next record, find a specific record, go to the first record, go to the last record, go to the next record, or go to the previous record. But you can actually add buttons onto here to make it easier for your users. You can do record operations. So for instance, if you want to be able to save a record or undo, print, duplicate a record, delete a record, or add a new record, these will navigate you to do that. These are form operations, so where these are specific to the individual record you're working with, these are specific to the form, the entire form. So they can apply a filter, they can close the form, open the form, print the current form that they're using, or refresh the form data. Report operations, we haven't created a report yet, but report operations allows you to work with a report. So if we have a report based on these employee details, here, let me move this over, then we could actually create a button to, for instance, open that report. Maybe that report is a list of all the employees and their phone numbers. So then you can just click a button and open that report. And then we won't get into the applications and the miscellaneous. Coming up, I'm going to show you how to create a couple of different kind of navigation buttons. So for now, let me just show you how to, we'll just do a record navigation, and we'll just say go to next record, and we'll say next. And you notice it's giving us an option of just having a picture that with an arrow, so that implies next. And you can add a picture, browse to your desktop and use a picture that you've uploaded. And you actually have two options too there for the existing pictures in there. But you can also just use the text. So it says next record, or you can modify the text, so we could just say next. And we're going to click next, and you can name this, and we could just call this next button. And then you click finish, and you see it's created our button and named it for us. And we can resize the button, and we can grab the button and move it. We could put our navigation over on the side here if we wanted, or down below. If I wanted to expand this over, then I could put our navigation buttons over here, and that gives the user a nice friendly button to get to the next record. Okay, so that's buttons. The next one is tab controls, and let me show you how this works. This is if you have a whole lot of form data that you're trying to get into one form. But for this instance, let's just say that we have a very small form and we need to divide up this information, okay? What we would do, I'm actually going to expand this for a moment so I can put my tab controls down here. Oops, that's not what I meant to do. Control Z and expand that. There we go. Give more space in our detail area. I'm going to go up here and I'm going to left click on the tab controls, and I'm going to drag it here and create my box and just drop it. Okay. Now what we're going to do is we're going to create two tabs so that we have half of this information on one tab and half of it on the other tab, just to take up less room. So the first thing we do is select what we want on the first tab, and we right click and cut, and we select on this, and we right click and we paste. Okay, and that drops these right into there. And then we can go to our next tab, select all of these, cut them again, and right click and paste. And it'll drop them in there. And then we can left click to unselect those. Now we can highlight this and rename these. And if we actually click into this, click on the actual label, you'll see it says page 22 up here. And we can go to format and we can change the caption. And in this case, instead of saying page 22, because it's just assigning an automatic page number for these tabs, we want to call this name. So we can just go to the caption here and type in name. And you see it changes it to name. Then we can go to the page 23 here and we'll do the same thing, go to the caption. And where this has like their office ID, their date of birth, and their employment status, so we could just call this one info or whatever describes it well. Hit enter. So now when we click on the first tab, we have name, and then we click on the second tab and it's their info. And you can create additional tabs by right clicking and saying insert page. See, it adds another tab, and you can just continue to expand this and create an entire form that fits on one page. And of course we can resize this if we want it to be bigger. Then everything fits differently. So we'd want to grab this and move it to where we wanted it. Grab it and move it. But that's the basics of how you create a tab control. And real quick, let's just look at it in form view so you can see how it works. So first we have name, and we've got the Bob Blake record showing. When we go to info, brings us info, and then obviously we didn't fill out anything for that. But you can see how you can just tab back and forth between these. And if we had a ton of info that needed to fit on one form, this would make it a little bit easier to just fit everything in. And then of course you can test our next button. So right now we're on Bob Blake, we click next. Goes to Stan Ford, click next again, Stu Bishop, and so on and so forth. Okay, so we'll go back to our design view. So that's the tab control. Let me show you how to do a hyperlink. And again, we left click on this. And let's say we just wanted to have a help article. We just say help, and then we put in an address. So if you have a website that has all of your help information for this particular form, then you could just type that in. So let's just use Google for now. And we'll just have this go to Google. But you would put in the address of your website that has your help article or document for this particular form. But you put it in, put your web address in there, and then you click OK. And then you can see it's put a little hyperlink in there, so people can click on that and go to that for help. Okay, so that's a hyperlink. We're not going to get into web browser control. It's basically just putting a web browser page into your form. I'm not going to do too much on navigation controls. I'm not going to go into option groups. A page break would be if you just want to break a form up into several pages in a specific spot, just like you do in Word, Microsoft Word. The combo box is a really useful tool that I'm going to show you how to do in another lecture. You can add charts, and obviously this would be more relevant if you had numerical data in here and you wanted to display a graph or a chart here. But the way you do this is you just left click it and you drag and highlight and drop it in there, and then it actually asks you where you want to pull your data from. And you know, this isn't going to be relevant really, but just to show you how you do it, because it is kind of cool, you just select where you want the chart to pull data from, and then you click next. Then you pick a field, and again, normally this would be some kind of numeric calculation, but let's just do a chart of our office IDs and click next. It asks you what kind of chart you want to do, and if you've used Excel, these probably look pretty familiar to you, but we'll just go with the basic column chart. You can mess with the layout of it here. This is for if you want the chart to change from record to record as they move through. And then you just name it. Click finish. And there you see it just drew a little chart right into our screen, right into our form. And you can move it and place it wherever you want. Now obviously this chart isn't really relevant to anything, but again, if you're using numerical data, you could have this chart that showed relevant data to what people were entering into the form. So that's kind of cool. But for now, let's delete that. We won't get too into dropping in lines or toggle buttons. There are a couple more that I want to show you. You can just draw a rectangle. You can do checkboxes. You can do an unbound object frame, attachments, option buttons, a subform or subreport. So in other words, this is a form here, but we can have an additional subform below that. So this is an unbound object frame, this is a bound object frame, and then an image. And let me just show you quickly how to put an image, because that's also kind of cool. Drop the image where you want it on your form, and then it's going to bring you to a browsing screen so you can select an image. And let's just say we wanted to put an image of these books. Then we do that, and it drops the image right in there. And of course you can resize it and fit it however you want. Okay, so you can use that just to basically decorate your forms or to place relevant images that somehow inform your users how to enter data into the form. You can also use this button here to insert an image as well. Okay, so those are some of the design tools that you can use. Now what we'll do is actually close out of this. And it doesn't matter if we save the changes because we're going to delete it anyway. So I'm just going to say no. And I'm going to go into this, and because this is our copy that we were just playing with, I'm going to get rid of that so it doesn't get in our way. So I'm going to right click on that and click delete. It's going to ask, do you want to permanently delete it? Yes, we do. And then that's gone, and we're back to our regular employee form. And in the next lecture, I'll show you how to create a drop-down for this so that you don't have to guess at the office ID number. We'll also create a drop-down for the employment status so it makes it easier for people to choose. And then I'll show you how to put some navigation buttons down here just to make it easier for your user to move from record to record.